Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry, this video is so overdue. I know I promised to have it up in like a week or two after my last one, and wouldn't you know, it's already been months. But that's mum life and full-time working mum life, I think. Anyway, I'm so sorry for not having it up straight away for you, but here it is, finally. So if you watched my last video, you know that we flew to Australia from our home here in the UK to visit my family back in June and July. And it was a 36-hour door-to-door journey on the way out there. It was slightly longer on the way back. I think it was like 41 hours on the way back. And we did all this with our 2.5-year-old daughter. She's just turned 3, so this is how long I've left it to make this video. I'm so sorry. But yeah, she was 2.5 at the time, and it was her first ever holiday outside of the UK, first trip on a plane. It's a long one at that, and her first time visiting Australia. So it was a lot of firsts. We weren't sure how it was going to go, and if you watch my last video, you can visually see in that video how nervous I was about it. I was so worried about how the trip was going to go. I mean, having a toddler, a 2.5-year-old, on a 36-hour journey, including a 13-hour flight and a 7.5-hour flight, it just was filling me with dread. And I really wasn't sure how it was going to go. And I am so pleased to tell you that it went amazingly. Our daughter was a champion little traveller. We were blown away, so impressed, and completely stunned. She did so well. I was so proud of her. In this video, I wanted to show you some clips of our actual journey, talk about how it all went, and I'll share a few of my biggest tips along the way through the footage, and I'm going to pair this with a blog post with a full written list of my best tips for traveling with a toddler. Because I learned a lot on the journey, learned a lot. I know it went well. It was a really good experience, both in terms of learning and just life. So this was the morning that we were setting off on our journey. Today is finally the day. This trip has been over 2 years in the making. We are finally headed back to Australia. This trip we were meant to do when my daughter was 6 months old, to go out, introduce her to my family in Australia, and we were meant to get married out there. That all got cancelled because of COVID, but today we are finally going. But yeah, I wanted to take you along with me. We're travelling from Bristol here in the UK all the way to my family's home in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. So we've got a taxi, a coach, a flight, a layover, a flight, and then a rental car drive, and then we'll be there. So I think we're all packed, I think we're all ready to go, and I'm going to take you along with me. Let's see how it goes. I just filmed a whole bit about the journey to London, and you know what? It's so convoluted. I'm actually going to just put it in a whole other video. But basically, our journey to London from Bristol, the beginning of our journey, it didn't go as I was very comfortable with. Basically, we were going to get the train. There was train strikes. We ended up having to get the coach, which meant we had to get a taxi into town and then a coach to London. And I'm very big on car seat safety, and yet in this situation, I had to compromise on my feelings about car seat safety, and my heart was pounding the entire way to London because my 2.5-year-old daughter was in my head not in a safe situation. Basically, when you watch these clips of my daughter in a taxi and on a coach without a car seat, know that I am feeling your discomfort as well. Anyway, like I said, I'll put that in a whole video because there's just too much to talk about and I don't want it to overrun this video. Anyway, we got to London. The journey went great, really, in terms of like Ada, how she dealt with it. So we got the taxi to the coach station, then our coach was slightly delayed, and so we were just sat in the coach station for a little while, and she actually did really well. She started to get a little bit antsy when we were lined up ready to get on the coach, but the coach was still unloading from the people that were getting off, and she didn't understand why we couldn't just move forward. Like, standing in a queue is quite hard for a toddler. And she had like maybe 30 seconds where she started to get a bit like grizzly. that was it. Once we like talked her through it, let her look out the window, and like she realized what was going on, and yeah, calmed down. And then on the coach, she actually fell asleep within like 10 minutes of us moving, and she slept most of the way there, and then just enjoyed looking out the window for the last half an hour once she'd woken up. We got to the airport, and this was during like all the post-COVID like crazy hectic airport stuff where there were like queues for hours. So we did spend 2 hours, I think it was, maybe 2.5 hours getting through check-in and security in total. We were in the check-in line at Qantas for longer than it took to get through security. So the check-in was actually the worst part for us. But all in all, it was fine. Ada was in our stroller because we took our stroller with us to gate check it at the gate. It was a £5 stroller I bought on Facebook Marketplace, so I wasn't concerned if it like got broken during transit. So she was in the stroller during check-in and security. Obviously, we had to fold it up to pop through the scanners, but that was absolutely fine. And during the long lines, the 2.5 hours that were in the check-in and security line, she just watched Frozen on our phone and ate lots of snacks that we had packed. Packed lots of snacks. Lots of snacks. They always come in handy. So yeah, that was all fine. Absolutely no issues. And then we managed to just have some time to chill, which was good. We got some food. We walked around a fair bit just to keep Ada kind of busy. We were flying out at like 9 p.m. at night, so obviously past Ada's bedtime, so she's starting to get tired in the airport, so we're just walking around. We get to our gate once they announced it, and because it was summer, it was still daylight outside, so Ada was able to watch the airplanes and stuff, which is really cute. Ada, are you excited to go on the plane? Yeah. You sound really excited.
Wait, that's on me.
Oh, the truck.
Wait, that's on me.
Yeah. Is that for you?
That's on me.
Oh, okay. We managed to gate check our stroller at the gate. They told us that we wouldn't be getting it back during our layover in Singapore, but that was fine. Actually, at Singapore airport, they have little pushchairs, little strollers that you can just grab and go with your kids. So like they have like luggage trolleys hanging around. They also have these little prams, which were brilliant. So we didn't use one of them on our first layover on our way to Australia because our flight was delayed out of London. So by the time we got to Singapore, we actually literally just walked to our gate and then got on the next flight. So we weren't like there for ages, but on the way back, we were in Singapore airport for like 7 hours. And we did grab one of those strollers and walked around a fair bit with it. So on the first flight, Ada's first ever plane flight, she fell asleep before takeoff. We were delayed. We were on the tarmac for like, I think like an hour. And then she was just chilling out with us. We were trying to get her calm. It was like her bedtime. And we planned to get up after takeoff, take her to the bathroom, get her in her pajamas. But when we were sat on the tarmac for so long, we were just like, let's just get her changed here. So we got her changed into her pajamas at her seat, and lucky we did, because then she like laid down on me, had a cuddle, and just fell asleep. And she slept. We were in a row of 3 seats on the window on the side of the plane, and she was in the middle of me and Dan. And she just laid between us. She's quite small, so that was fine. On Qantas, you can't use like those extender, like what do they call them? Sleep aids, like the inflatable footrests or anything to help your kids sleep. You can't use them on Qantas, which is a bit annoying. But she's so small that she just laid down between us. And she slept for 8.5 hours straight, which even for a regular night at home, that's really good innings. So we were absolutely stoked. She woke up with like 2.5 hours left of the flight or something like that. 2.5, 3 hours, maybe more. I can't remember, but it passed really quickly too. She read the in-flight magazine. She read the safety guide from the plane. She read a book that I packed for her, a new book that she hadn't seen before, with like lift the flap and stuff. and she even played with the earplugs. And she watched a bit of like the TV in front of her, but not much. And then, so I didn't even crack open my big bag of like activities that I brought for the flight. I didn't even crack them open on the first flight, which was good because that meant for the second flight, which I expected her not to sleep as much since she had that big sleep, I had all these fresh activities ready to go, brand new, exciting, you know? As I said, we got to Singapore. She was absolutely fine on landing. She actually loved it. She thought it was funny. And then, as I said, once we got into Singapore airport, because our flight had been delayed, we literally just walked to the next gate and got ready to go. Now, at Singapore airport, we did have a bit of an incident, basically because even when you're in transit at Singapore, at every gate, there's then like another little security line you've got to go through for the individual gate. And when we walked through that, I had Ada on my hip. We walked through that, and I got pulled aside. And obviously, because I'd walked through with a baby, I knew they'd then want to pat me down. And that was what she indicated. She got me to stand on the feet things, and went to go start patting me down. And I was like, "Oh, should I put Ada down?" Like, and she's like, "No, it's fine." Did not tell me that she was going to pat down my daughter as well. My daughter is a COVID baby who has no other extended family nearby us. Like, literally her first year and a half of her life was me and Dan and occasional visits from other people, but she's not used to other people. She is not used to strangers coming up to her and touching her. Nor should they. Nor should they. But because I didn't get to give her a warning of this, because I didn't know that this woman was going to pat down my daughter on her nappy area as well. If she had just told me, like, it makes sense. Like, I understand you need to be safe. You need to check every passenger. Some people might smuggle things using babies' diapers. I've heard that, but I just didn't even think in that moment that that was what was going to happen. And because she didn't say anything, I couldn't pre-warn Ada. And Ada literally shuddered and curled into me in fear, which then had lasting ramifications, because then we went to Australia to meet all of her extended family, all of my family, and she just had this freaky experience with a stranger touching her. And every time a family member came up to try and like give her a hug or something while she was in that same position on my hip that she had been at Singapore airport, she would shudder and lean into me again, just as she had when that woman patted her down. And if only she'd let me give her a warning, if only she told me that that's what she was going to do, I'm sure things would have been so different. And they were, because on the way back at Singapore airport, they did the exact same thing, pulled me aside while I had Ada on my hip, went to go start patting me down, and I said, "Hold on, are you going to touch my daughter and me?" And they said, "Yes, both of you." And I said, "Okay." And I just turned to Ada and I said, "Ada, they're just going to touch us. They're just going to check. They're just going to pat us down." And she was fine, because I got to give her a warning. But on the way out there, I didn't realise. I should have realised that that's what they're going to do. But I've never flown with a kid before. And while I've heard of this happening, I didn't know it was routine. And I just wish I'd known, because it had lasting ramifications for our whole trip when Ada was meeting new people in new situations and she didn't want them to give her a hug or touch her at all. And obviously my family got upset when they couldn't get a hug off her, but I'm not going to upset my child by forcing her to hug someone when she's clearly uncomfortable as well. But I mean, I've always had that notion, but this just made things 10 times worse. Anyway, that's my rant. Sorry. We get on the next flight, and again, Ada is that tired that she falls asleep before takeoff. And she sleeps for the first 2.5 hours of that flight, and then she is into that bag of activities that I'd packed. She loved all of the activities I'd packed, particularly the Water Wow books, the Melissa and Doug Water Wow books. Oh my gosh, they were incredible. Not only did she spend like an hour straight off when she first got that out, She then continued to use it on and off for the rest of the trip. And while we were in Australia, when we were like at cafes or restaurants or visiting family and she needed an activity, I had that in the nappy bag and she used it like so much. Those were worth their weight in gold, those books. Love them. Cannot recommend them more. She also loved the reusable sticker book, which was also a Melissa and Doug. It was a dinosaur one. She's obsessed with dinosaurs. She loved that. I also had like a Bing whiteboard book, which she loved. And what else? Oh, poppets. I had like poppets and fidget toys. And she loved them as well. She loved reading the books that I'd packed as well. On the way back as well, on our Qantas flight out of Brisbane, they gave her this mini like Etch-a-Sketch, and she loved that as well. She loved playing with that. She also watched quite a bit of downloaded TV and movies that we had on our tablets. Yeah, she used them. She watched quite a bit of like Tish Tash and Bing. And on the way out there, for some reason, my Disney Plus app wasn't working, which we had on my tablet. I don't know why. On the way back, it was though, and so she watched a lot of Bluey and Frozen, which she's obsessed with. But yeah, so definitely downloading some of your kids' favorite TV shows and movies before you go. Great tip. Loved it. The only time that Ada got upset whilst flying was when on our second flight there, when I said she had a 2.5 hour nap, when she fell asleep before takeoff. It was brightly lit in the cabin and everything. When she woke up, it was pitch black. They turned it for nighttime basically, and she'd clearly been having a nightmare just before she woke up. So then she had a nightmare, woke up in a completely dark, unknown space, and she did start crying. But instantly, me and Dan rushed to the back of the plane with her, so we didn't want to disturb the passengers around us. And it took 5 minutes for her to calm down, and that was the worst that we had. And even that wasn't that bad. It was fine. But yeah, she clearly had a nightmare that had really upset her. Yeah, I was absolutely stunned that everything went so well. And every time she started to get like slightly grouchy, I just offered her another activity or I offered her a snack. Snacks were a godsend because they came in handy whenever she was starting to get a bit grizzly or couldn't decide what she wanted. Snack. Yeah, we got to Australia and we had to wait ages to get our hire car. And then once we did get our hire car, we jumped in it and it was like 2.5 hour drive down to where my family live. And she napped again during that time. We did pop in and see my brother right near the airport where he was working right near the airport. So we dropped by and saw him. And so she had a little bit of outside time to like play on the grass on the roadside while we chatted to my brother quickly. And then we headed off on the 2.5 hour drive. And yeah, she had a little nap, which was great. And again, I will, in that other video that I was talking about making about car seat safety, I'll talk about what we did for a hire car seat. We did not hire a car seat through the hire car company, but we got it through a different business altogether who delivered it and installed it into our rental car before we arrived to pick up the rental car. And that was brilliant. But yeah, I'll talk about all that in that other video. And then yeah, we finally got down to my family and had a wonderful holiday. And then, as I said, on the way back, basically things went exactly the same. We had a long layover in Singapore, which was even longer than planned because of a flight delay. And then we were stuck at the gate at like, I think it was like midnight Singapore time, which was even later Australian time or something like that. It was just really late for Ada, no matter what it was. It was just late. And we'd been in this airport for 7 hours by that point. And now we were all crushed into this gate, but weren't going anywhere because everyone had been let through into the gate and then no one was being let onto the plane yet because it was delayed. And Ada was starting to get grizzly. You could see all the other kids in the gate as well that were for the flight were also getting grizzly because it was just so late. And just no one knew what was going on. yeah, Ada did get a bit antsy then, and while we were sat on the plane while everyone else was boarding, she was starting to get a bit antsy. You know, it was a lot for her to take on. I was so proud of how she did, because it would have been so overwhelming for her. In the end, we got her, she was already in her pajamas, but we gave her a cuddle and tried to like keep her calm, and she ended up falling asleep, and then we ended up falling asleep before takeoff. So all's well that ends well, really. But yeah, I was so shocked at how smooth our journey went, especially for such a long journey, like across the other side of the world for her first ever plane journey. I was just so proud of her. And I am so thankful that I did things the way I did. Like my husband kept saying to me, my bag of tricks, as I called it, that I showed you in my last video. He was like, that bag of tricks was everything we needed, and he was so pleased that I'd done it. He gave me a lot of credit for that. Thank you, babe. But yeah, I was really pleased that I packed everything that I did, because yeah, it did as well. All those snacks, all those activities, all the different maybe items that I had in there, everything came in handy. Everything that I packed, I used, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm going to pop up this video alongside a blog post with all my top tips for flying with a toddler, because as I said, I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about what worked and what didn't. And yeah, I'd just like to share that with you if it's going to help any other parents out there. Flying with children can definitely be stressful, even just the thought of it, because yeah, like I said, what I thought in my head was worse than how it actually went in reality, which is great. That's a great scenario to have. But yeah, I was glad that I really, really prepared, over prepared maybe, because I was so nervous about it. It all worked out in the end. Anyway, check out the blog post if you want my top tips for traveling with a toddler, and good luck if you're traveling with a toddler in the near future. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. Good luck to you and happy travels. Bye.